Okay, so the next game we're talking about is Startropics, one word, which was nominated by @TreeHouseJPN on Twitter. It was developed by Nintendo IRD and Locomotive Corporation and published by Nintendo for the NES. Earliest release date was December 1st, 1990 in North America. And quite fitting because this game is clearly aimed directly at the wallets of North American parents in 1990. So
it wasn't even released in Japan, I believe, or at least it was never intended for release. They built it for the US market.
I don't think it was released in Japan, which is amazing because this is one of the rare, Western, releases for the NES that did not get a Famicom release. And this is one of the games that I would say, like, if you were a Japanese Famicom game collector, you would really feel slighted at not having this because it's
kind of the NES equivalent of Secret of Evermore.
I would,
wow.
I would say so.
Comparison. Yeah.
Well, no, it is, but Secret of Evermore was released in Japan, right?
Crap, I don't remember. We'll talk more about that if it ever gets nominated. But focus on Startropics.
That's a good point, Bob. Though that it is a Secret of Evermore-esque game in the sense that it was designed with the North American market in mind, based on what the company, in this case Nintendo, knew about what players in that region wanted, and what they wanted in this case was more Zelda. Give us more Zelda, and that's what they got.
They gave them kind of a janky-ish Zelda-ish thing.
It's janky, but it's very, very, I mean, even for late NES games, this is a very polished game. It's janky in the sense that it's a little bit too hard, I think. But in terms of it's got that weird, which we have to talk about, like the whole, secret message that you have to decode by putting something in water, I believe.
You get a letter from your uncle in the game's packaging, and you are instructed to dunk his letter in water to reveal a code that you'll need later on in the game.
Is this like the first console game with copy protection, I wonder?
I don't think that's what it was for. I think it was just a nifty thing that they did.
Yeah, you can say it's copy protection in a sense, but it's not very good copy protection as a general rule, because copy protection shouldn't be a single code that never changes that you could just hand to your friend on whatever the number is. I think it's like,
it should be like, what is the,
Yeah, like it gives you like a 500-page manual of just gibberish, and it's like, on page 307, line 89, what is the third word from the right? It's like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. So with Startropics, Zelda was incredibly popular for the NES, and it was probably Nintendo's biggest hit easily, other than Super Mario Brothers. It was a huge hit. They got tons and tons of calls about it. Zelda 2 was also a huge hit, but did not really, players did not, at least in my experience or in my neck of the woods, it was not nobody was talking about Zelda 2 really. It just didn't quite do what we wanted it to do.
I'm wondering something about Startropics' place. Do you think it was made as kind of a mea culpa for how Zelda 2 was just so different from the original formula? They wanted
I don't know.
Action game still?
I don't know about that. I think it was.
My quick question would be, but what was Japan after? Because obviously this game wasn't released in Japan. They never intended to release it in Japan. Because Japan didn't care as much about Zelda in 1990. Were they just gearing up?
They had a lot of other. What they were after in Japan was Dragon Quest, and you got so many Dragon Quest clones, and most of them were, or not most of them, but a fair number of them were pretty competent. And you also got a lot of Dragon Quest sequels, and so that's what that market wanted. And they didn't. It's not that they didn't like Zelda. It's just that Zelda didn't have the. It's the same thing as Metroid. It's like a lot of people bought Metroid, but in Japan, but it didn't have the same kind of cachet, I guess you would say, in that market. That, as best as I can gather, I definitely don't know firsthand. I was not living in Japan at the time. I don't live in Japan now. In fact, I've never lived in Japan. So, but I'm just saying, based on what I understand, it's like you can find.
Well, you can look at the release schedules,
right?
And this is very unusual. It's so strange that, because this is Nintendo, right? This is Nintendo made a game, and they decided not to release it in Japan. And that's completely decided, no, we're not going to bother.
Yeah, I mean, it's also when it was released. So
it was 1990, so it would have been competing
doing
against the SNES or Super Famicom at the time. So they probably... Nintendo have done that in the past. They have shifted... once they release their new console, they just drop the previous one. Like, they just like, no, we're not making games for that anymore.
It's a relatively small company. That's what people keep forgetting, is that they don't... They're more than happy to let other people kind of develop killer apps for their hardware after they've put the hardware out there, and they've always been like that until the Wii U, in which case they just didn't have anybody else to do anything, and they had to do everything, and they kind of upped their release thing, and we'll see what happens with the whatever the Switch. But
back to the plot of Startropics. What do we do?
So Startropics is pretty interesting. It's a top-down action game, action RPG type thing. You play a character, I believe, named Mikey. You show up at an island, and you get a quest based on whatever. You have a weapon. I believe your weapon is a yo-yo all the time, right?
You're given the yo-yo, which is some sort of ancient tribal yo-yo weapon, according to the manual.
Believe it or not, the yo-yo is actually a very old hunting type weapon. That's where its roots come from.
Yeah, I believe that there was a yo-yo of some description. This one looks like an American standard yo-yo, though, I believe. Like
yes, it does, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of, like, if you want to diss the yo-yo... Actually, no,
I don't want to go one-on-one with someone with a yo-yo made of metal. That would hurt like hell.
I mean, but you could deal with rocks and stuff, But anyway.
But yeah, you get a yo-yo, and it's your permanent weapon. It is your sword in this game as such.
It's really cool. You've got your Mikey is a dude with a baseball cap.
I don't think he wears one, actually.
What? He doesn't?
No, I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
even though he is a baseball player, all of his weapons are themed around baseball. He does not wear a baseball cap. That is correct.
No, but he gets a bat, he gets actual baseballs to throw, and he gets, I think, baseball cleats, which for some reason give him, like, super ninja kicking skills when he uses them. I don't know how the logic on that works.
Well, I mean, I think he kicks regularly, and it's just like, well, whatever, those shoes are smooth. Oh my god, he's wearing cleats. Oh no, ow.
He's descended from ninjas, who knew?
Maybe that's...
Well, but anyway, yeah, Startropics itself, I mean, the tropics latter suffix of the title indicates that primarily this game runs on a very interesting island theme, which is very consistent for the most part, except for the last quarter of the game, which somehow takes place in a UFO, but I guess that's a spoiler to say.
You gotta wonder whether this game influenced in any way Link's Awakening, which takes place on an island, a weird island kind of scenario.
That's a good point. I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I forget if Genyo Takeda had any involvement in Link's Awakening. I don't believe he did. Takeda, who is primarily also known for directing Punch-Out! And Punch-Out! And Startropics are like his major babies, I suppose. One of Nintendo's more under.
He must have been fingered at the office as being not... wrong choice of words, but it must have been isolated as being like the guy who understands somehow the American market. And I bet you personally, he like went home with is talking to his wife or whatever and saying like, they think like I know what Americans want. I don't know what Americans want. I've never even been in the United States. I don't know what they want. Like, what am I supposed to do?
It seems like, yeah, because like it's like they're a concept of what Americans want. It's like baseball. Like that's it. Like, this is like baseball.
They like baseball. We like
caps.
baseball. That's the one thing I understand.
Baseball. And what about that Gilligan Island show? That's popular. Let's send Mikey on a 3-island tour.
Oh my god, what am I gonna do?
So do you think the reason this never went beyond the NES because just like Japan had just no interest in it, or they just assumed as such?
Well, I mean, it served its purpose, but it got a sequel. It got Startropics 2: Zoda's Revenge, which is even harder.
I would like to talk Startropics 2 more if that gets nominated, but it's a very different beast than the first game. I mean, the first one is probably most notable gameplay-wise because it's very strictly appended to a grid. Now, the original Legend of Zelda was 2 in a way, but it's a lot more obvious that you have a grid here because you have to keep leaping around on these squares with, like, water between them, and you can jump, like...
Incredibly weird, but... You know what? I think that they must have based it on was a Konami game. I believe it was an FDS game. Mekyujin Dababa.
Baba. Yeah, hey, that was the one where he played as like that psychic guy who jumped around. Shoot. I remember playing that one. And
A lot of jumping around in that game too, from square to square.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a pretty good game, but Startropics is probably better, I'd say.
You guys have brought in that this game has a jump button, which makes a huge difference between this and the Zelda franchise, which mostly doesn't have the jump button. So they themed the bulk of the puzzles around jumping. There's a lot of jumping on things.
Wait, you could jump in Link's Awakening. Hey.
Yeah. They introduced that. That's more connections. You should just connect all these dots.
Yeah, that's what I tend to do when I don't know what else to talk about.
The grid system is very odd. You can see why they did it when you start to play the game and you kind of like need to aim at certain angles and do very precision movements, but it's really a big pain in the ass. I think there's no way to sort of phrase this like other than like it's not very intuitive to control this game. Like you try and walk up, and if you're looking in a different direction, you have to look up before you can go up, and it's very janked up. I don't know.
It takes some practice to get used to how incredibly strict movement is. I would say it even goes so far as to feel restrictive at some points now.
It's really not a good engine for platforming, we can say that much.
It's true, but it doesn't work quite the same way platforming does, because it's got like, there's timing elements to it, but you're never going to miss a platform because, I just jumped too soon,
the grid is sort of a double-edged sword, because while it does feel more restrictive in some cases, it also reduces error, because you're not going to go off target if you mess up this jump, because you almost
which you can do in Link's Awakening, interestingly, because you can hit the edge of the platform and then spiral off.
That's true. That happens a lot.
And which you can do in Startropics 2, which ditched the precision movement for better or worse. I think
for worse, to be honest.
Yeah.
Startropics 2 is a very interesting game, but it feels like they were actually Startropics 2 really does feel like it was like the step before Link's Awakening. Maybe we should rank this. I'm not really sure what else we can say about it.
One other thing that I would like to say, just quickly, is we haven't mentioned that the game actually has two different views. The dungeon view is the close-up kind of platformy view, but then it pulls the game out to a much more traditional Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy sort of RPG view, where you kind of like move around towns and stuff.
Not unlike Zelda 2, really.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, only I don't think you get accosted on the world map. Like, all the dungeons are set straight without any random encounters.
True. It does seem like kind of a spare game. Like, not a spare, but like a very focused game. Like, it's not like expansive in the way Zelda 2 is.
Yeah, Startropics is actually technically linear. I mean, it's divided clearly.
Linear. Oh my god. 2017. Start over.
The game is more linear, okay, that sounds pretty natural, than any given Zelda title, because it has about 8 acts to it, and once you beat an act, that's done. You're not going back to the area ever.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't recall there being many permanent power-ups, or if they are, it's almost impossible to miss them. But yeah, I mean, I do technically appreciate that. Like, it feels complex, but really it's not when you get right down to it, although some dungeons can be pretty nasty. Like, the enemies can get fairly overwhelming at points, especially with the very cardinal directions movement. And there are definitely a few murder boat scenarios.
Indeed.
Harking back to Case Quest 5, where you jump off the edge of the screen and you instantly die and you had no way of knowing that.
Oh, that's the worst.
So I have to... As much as I do like this game, I do have to take off some marks for that, unfortunately.
I also don't really like the way the dungeon system, the way that checkpointing works in it is really weird. You lose your health and you can die if you land in the water. You just instantly die, and then you get thrown to the start of the dungeon sometimes, and everything resets. And there's a checkpoint in there somewhere sometimes. It's really punishing for not successfully beating the dungeon in one go in this game.
That's true. That is a big problem.
Offhand, there are also a lot of switches. I don't know how anyone feels about that, but
very Link's Awakening, I would say.
Yeah.
But I will say before we do rank it, I do kind of like the dialogue in this game. It flows a lot more naturally. They've written it Like, it's actually built for English-speaking language so that people actually speak in multiple sentences.
Oh.
Their actual, the actual language they use is quite natural.
Pretty good,
and it has some pretty fun little touches. Like, you at the very start, you go out and you can talk to a pig and it says oink oink. Then you go talk into a building and they're like, it's great, we're celebrating having pig for dinner. And I'm like, pig screwed.
It can be a pretty funny game at times as well. I mean, it does have a very sort of light-hearted and self-aware.
I think it was done. I think it was translated, not translated, but it was written or whatever by the same person or persons who did the unreleased Earthbound Beginnings or Earthbound Zero Mother. I don't know for sure, but it was about the same time, and it seems to have a little bit of the same kind of whimsy to it that. You can see this now because the Earthbound Beginnings, the thing you can get on Virtual Console, is the translation we would have gotten in North America had that game been released.
Now, whimsy's a good word to describe it. Like, am I the only one who's thinking this game got a little influence from the Goonies because the hero is Mike, and like...
I think it was definitely. Like, I think they were well aware of... the Goonies, too, sold a lot of copies.
I would not be surprised, especially since Xerxes was saying along the lines of they probably didn't have a super great idea about the U.S. They almost certainly rented a few, like, whatever U.S. movies that were kind of popular enough and translated in Japan. Like, what do they watch?
Like Zelda, Americans watch the Goonies.
It's a very 80s game where you destroy a giant moai head by throwing baseballs into its mouth, so...
It's pretty rad, yeah. Where do we want to put this? Where do you want to put this on the big old list? It's hard to put it too high because it is a pretty minor game. But, in terms of late period NES games, this is a must play.
I'd stick it around the Quark range. Is that too low?
I agree.
That's
No,
bad,
I agree
actually.
with that. I love
Yeah,
Quark.
I was putting it much lower than that, so I don't know.
So,
it's
between...
maybe closer to Little Samson?
I would rank it above Little Samson just because I feel like, actually, no. Wait a second. Because this game does get brutally difficult towards the end in a very kind of unfair way.
Once
It's
you
very
get in the
much like Little
UFO,
Samson.
all bets are off. It's like almost a whole new game and it doesn't like you.
Yeah.
I would... I don't like to put things that I think are kind of like a bit not superb above Master of Magic. I like Master of Magic.
I was going to actually say between Master of Magic and Wendy Every Which Way.
I like Wendy better, but I can...
If you like Wendy better, I'd be willing to go
that.
one more down. That's up to you guys.
I'm going to say I like it a bit more than G.I. Joe, and I really like G.I. Joe a lot. But, I don't know.
I kind of agree. Yeah, like if somebody said you can only play one of these games, I would definitely go with Startropics because it's a little bit more challenging and it's a little bit more, there's just puzzles and things like that involved. And with G.I. Joe, it's just not there. It doesn't have the same replay value.
I would definitely say Startropics did try. They didn't say let's just
really
take
hard.
the Zelda engine and just slap other graphics in it.
Oh yeah, they could have really phoned this one in, and they didn't. They really tried hard. So
it feels still distinct from Zelda. While I don't know, it's in a sort of weird spot. I do think its tropical theme does set it much apart from Zelda's sort of fantasy.
Also, as one of the very, very rare Western exclusive Famicom, NES games that really are, if we have are all 5 of our listeners in Japan who are native Japanese, collect Famicom cartridges, etc. Like, you need Startropics. This is like I would say like it is to Japanese collectors what, I don't know, maybe Murasama Castle or something like that is to...
Speaking of top-down action games, that's actually a pretty good comparison.
Yeah, or something. There's a lot more in Nintendo published games for the Famicom that we didn't get here, but I would say like this is like one of the ones that you kind of do really want to play. You're not getting the whole Nintendo Famicom NES story unless you play at least the first Startropics.
So I think we can agree it's going above G.I. Joe. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, I am.
I agree. That's where it goes.
So Ken, we just sign out on. It's incredible that Mike has not shown up as a playable character in Smash Brothers, even though they already
There's a trophy,
have.
right?
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he get they even give him like a sticker? in
He
Smash
wasn't-
Brothers?
I don't remember. He wasn't an assist trophy even, and that is
Like, they already have a
6
guy
Fire
that,
Emblem characters. Come on, Nintendo. You can
Yeah,
reach a little
and they
farther
have-
than that.
a guy who has a baseball bat and a yo-yo. He gets to be in there, and you do have
Yeah.
to palette swap him to Mike.
Oh.
No.
You could be so easy.
Wow, I never realized
It would be
that.
so easy.
He might
That's a
be
good
biting.
point.